Press the button, my friend.
The Out of Bounds Show is live from the Whiskey 61 Lounge in the Bank Plus studio.
Check it out.
Your SEC Insider Hit this morning is brought to you by Tito's Handmade Vodka, straight out of Austin, Texas, American-made. You can find it at Briarwood Wine and Spirits, among every other wine and spirit shop in the state of Mississippi. This is ESPN 105.9 The Zone, and we are streaming live right now on YouTube. Search Out of Bounds Sports, and we're also on the Out of Bounds radio app. We want to welcome in our friend Tom Luginbill, national college football analyst with ESPN, recruiting and such. Former Power 5 quarterback back in the day. Wasn't but a couple of years ago. Tom Luginbill, good morning. What's up, buddy?
Yeah, a year or two. You know, it hasn't been long at all.
Hey, I was thinking about that. I cut my finger on my door this morning, on my car door. And, when you do that kind of stuff as you get older, it multiplies or something. It's amplified. I don't know what to say. I mean, I was like, I'm bleeding all over myself and it's dark and I'm driving in and I don't know that I'm bleeding. And then I'm up here. And as you can imagine, we don't have a first aid kit up here in the studio because it's a bunch of guys. And I did find some Band-Aids. So I was just thinking about that at 40-something years old.
So how did you do that? Like, how do you cut your finger on your car?
So there's this inside part of my door. I drive a Yukon Denali. And there's a spot where I open it up. And every time I'm doing this, I'm getting in my car pitch black dark, And so I'll do this about every 3 months. I cut the same finger. It's unbelievable. You would think that I would figure it out, but I don't.
At least you're consistent.
That's a good point. Speaking of consistent, I saw where Laramie Tunsil signed for $75 million, 3 years, and I wanted to ask you, since you've been evaluating prospects for ESPN, who is the best offensive lineman you ever evaluated coming out of high school?
Coming out, it would have been either him or the big 6'9" guy that went to Alabama, and I don't know why his name, Evan Neal.
Evan Neal.
Okay. Yeah. And I would say Cam Robinson's up there too. Cam Robinson was in that mix.
Did you have Laramie Tunsil in the Under Armour game?
We did not. Actually, he played in the Army game.
Okay. I just remember what a big deal that was.
For lack of trying.
No, I get it. He was committed to Georgia forever, and Ole Miss came in and got him. I remember what a big deal. He literally started from day one at left tackle. You know how hard that is to do in the SEC, Luke.
Oh my goodness. It's hard anywhere. I mean,
that's
just from
point.
Going to high school to college, that learning curve is so steep, Bo. I mean, it is like, it's hard on a quarterback to play as a freshman, but if you're an offensive lineman, you're an offensive tackle, and you're being asked to play, particularly in a line of scrimmage conference, that is a tall task.
I'll never forget the Egg Bowl that year, 2013. The two best players on the field were true freshmen. So this is 12 games in. Laramie Tunsil and Chris Jones. Late November.
Yeah.
And they're the two best players on the field, and they're true freshmen. They're not – Laramie was more refined, but they may not have been, seniors and so on, but they were the two – how about this? They were the two most talented players on the field. How about that, Tom? I remember sitting there in the stadium that night going, wow.
Right. And there's statistical anomalies, though. I mean, think about how many players come in to play college football at any level, all the way down to NAIA, all the way up to the elite Power 5 programs. How many players have stepped on the field as true freshmen and been the best player on the field between both teams? I mean, that's like 0.00008% of freshmen that would even have a chance to play that could have that type of an impact.
He's 28 years old, Laramie Tunsil. Luke's. He just signed a 3-year, $75 million deal that includes $60 million fully guaranteed.
I'll tell you, man, and you hear me say this at the high school level too, there is such a dearth of high-level premium position players in terms of sheer numbers that if you think you have one or you think you have access to one, you're going to be willing to overpay.
Mm-hmm.
You just are. And look around the NFL right now. I mean, every one of these ownership groups or individual owners are trying to ensure that they make good business decisions that make sense financially, not only for the player, but for the organization. And, Cleveland went and screwed it all up. So now every player on the market thinks they're worth, A, B, C, D, or E, and they want it all up front, right? And they want it all guaranteed. They want it guaranteed in the most dangerous sport on the planet with a huge, huge injury factor involved. And some of these guys that are out there wanting some of this stuff have a history of being injured.
Sure.
And it's like, what is going on here?
I actually think that's what makes the NFL so good. Fewer games in the rectangular field that fits TV perfectly, and you know all about this, calling college games. But I see some of our colleagues talking about how, well, all these contracts should be guaranteed in the NFL. I'm sitting there going, no, because the NBA and Major League Baseball does it, and let's just be honest, a lot of players become lazy. I mean, they know, hey, I got 6 years, X. It's guaranteed. It doesn't matter how I perform. Dude, in the NFL, you get a couple years into your contract and you're sitting here thinking, damn, there's an out for the team. I just think there's always a sense of urgency for the most part, not all the players, but there's always a sense of urgency going into those July camps. And I think that's why the league is so damn good.
Well, and I'll say this, even without guaranteed contracts at the NFL level, have you noticed that, I'm sure you have, and I'm sure most fans of the NFL have you noticed that when your favorite player of your team is going into his final contract year before he becomes a free agent, all of a sudden he has the best year of his career? And then have you noticed that the next year after they sign, they come right back down to earth for the exact reason you just stated?
Sure.
What's the motivation? Now you want to start guaranteeing it? That's why, you can say all you want about Deion Sanders. Deion Sanders was one of the very few players in the National Football League, and there's been others, but he's been one of the very few players in the National Football League. But no matter how much money he signed for, no matter how many times he was on the open market, he was every bit as good the following year and proved it his entire career. There are very few players you can say that about. And that was without guaranteed money. And so now we're just going to throw out guaranteed money. It's kind of like what we talk about with NIL, right? We're going to sit there and throw all this money at an 18-year-old kid or a 19-year-old kid who hasn't done anything yet. And then you're going to expect him to perform when, because of antitrust laws, you can't put performance stipulations in the contracts. Does that make any sense? Do we do that in any other realm of professional life? No. But we seem to want to do it with NIL and guaranteed contracts.
And again, I think that's why the NFL system structure is much, much better. He is Tom Luginbill, ESPN insider on the Out of Bounds show, 105.9 The Zone. We're going to switch gears here, drop a little audio. We're going to have some fun with this. I'm confident Tom Luginbill has listened to this, but we were back in the Jimbo Fisher-Bobby Petrino debate, and Jimbo couldn't seem to give us a straight answer this week.
And what about who makes the play calls? Would that be him or you?
Yeah, we'll go through that as we go.
Go back to the back.
Plan on him making calls. Plan on him calling plays. I have no problem with that at all.
That wasn't convincing. Tom Luginbill, was that convincing for you?
It was just a bad answer all around, right? Wasn't it? Isn't the whole reason why you brought him in, the entire reason why you brought him in is because Number one, you had to, right? That's number one.
Right.
And number two, how is it any different if he's the offensive coordinator and not calling the plays? And whose offense then is it? So I just think that could have been so easily avoided with a clear and concise answer. Something as simple as, yeah, that's why I brought him in. Bobby Petrino will be the offensive coordinator here and calling plays. And then it's done. There's not even a need to ask a follow-up question. But he leaves it out in the open with such a poorly contrived answer. That was a bad look.
And it's because he doesn't want to give it up. We all know that. I mean,
of course.
Come on, the guy, as you know, the guy's 25 years in, either as an OC or a head coach. And for the most part, he's been the play caller. And he doesn't want to give it up. All right, so their second game is against Miami. And I know Miami's proven it in recruiting, but hasn't proven it on the field in a long time. But let's just say that's a close game. Can you imagine? Close game, one possession, game's unfolding, and they're marching down the field, and Jimbo's not calling plays, but as the game maybe tightens and things happen, I just cannot wait to see how this plays out. Now people are talking about over-under on how long before Jimbo takes it from Bobby Petrino. And I think it'll only be a few games in, Tom. Oh, we lost Tom Luginbill. He joined us. He was joining us on the Farm Bureau Insurance guest line. Bundle your car and home and save with your local Farm Bureau Insurance agent. Go to favorites.com. Get a quote in 4 minutes or less, favorites.com. This is ESPN 105.9 The Zone, the Out of Bounds Show, and you can watch this segment on YouTube. Search Out of Bounds Sports. Luginbill, y'all just went solid. All right, so Tom, I'm giving it 3 or 4 games as my over/under for Petrino calling plays.
Okay.
How do you see it?
Wow. As in until he starts to call plays?
No. I think Petrino, I guess he makes it all the way through August practice. They play something like New Mexico State or something. So they should win. I know they were supposed to do that last year, but they should win. Let me make sure. New Mexico, game 1. And then they go to Miami. And then I think it could get weird. So I'm going game 3 or game 4.
Before what? What are you saying?
Before Fisher grabs the play calling back from Petrino.
I think, to be honest with you, I think the answer to that question depends on what type of quarterback play they have.
Yes.
And Bobby Petrino's a damn good quarterback coach now, and I think if they, whether it's Connor Wigman, whoever it's going to be, if the quarterback's playing well, it won't matter. Because at the end of the day, they'll be pretty good. They're going to have good players. It's a tried and true scheme. Bobby Petrino's offensive scheme is, and really, to be honest with
you,
his scheme has even gotten better since he's had Lamar Jackson, because it forced him to evolve with some of the other principles that have come into college football now that he's added into what he already had as a tried and true scheme. So I think the answer to that is completely quarterback related.
Okay, so how does Bobby Petrino's scheme match up with Jimbo Fisher's conservatism or conservative play calling or way of coaching?
I don't think it does. I don't think that Bobby Petrino's just up tempo, throw it all over the lot type of guy. I think he is very efficient. He's a really, really good play caller. They're really good with formations and personnel groupings and shifts and motions. They give you an awful lot that you're going to have to deal with. But I wouldn't call Bobby Petrino conservative, but I wouldn't call him necessarily aggressive either.
Okay.
Certainly in terms of like tempo or things of that nature. But I don't think he's conservative. I really don't. And I'm not so sure that Jimbo is conservative. I just don't know if the offensive scheme and what today's football has become works anymore. I think it's that simple, regardless of what his approach is.
Talk to me about Bobby Petrino's personality. I mean, for years we've heard he's dry, he's not outgoing. When you've been around him, what's it like trying to carry on a conversation with Bobby Petrino? Painful?
For me, it's been fine.
Okay.
Now, I have a little bit of West Coast history with him. My dad and his dad, longtime coaches out on the West Coast. But, yeah, he's not personable. He's not going to be outgoing. He's playing things very close to the vest. You'll get a smile out of him every now and then. He's not too dissimilar to dealing with Coach Saban.
Okay.
You just kind of this is the personality you're going to get. You know this is what he is and how he is. And as long as you don't go into it with any expectations above and beyond that, you won't have any issues at all. Now, what I have heard is that it's not so much how he is outwardly, but apparently he is extremely difficult to work for.
Okay.
And, you hear that, about a lot of guys. Some guys are very easy to work for. Other guys aren't so easy to work for. I've heard he's on a pretty far end of that spectrum.
Does that match up with what you hear about Jimbo too?
Yeah, absolutely. I don't think Jimbo's overly easy to work for. I think at the end of the day, they're both very demanding, and there's nothing wrong with that.
Right.
They're demanding. They want results. They have a plan. And so that's a good thing to me. And to be honest with you, we can criticize Jimbo Fisher all we want, but at least he did go out and do something that needed to be done.
Sure.
Kind of like Dabo Swinney at Clemson. Dabo Swinney, one of the most loyal coaches in all of college football, got to the point where he had to make a decision for the program and not for one individual, and he made it.
Right.
And so we got to credit Jimbo for that.
Let's go there then. Tom Luginbill with ESPN on the Farm Bureau Insurance Guest Line. Are you sold on Garrett Riley? I mean, I don't know. I mean, I know we've known about Lincoln for a while. I thought he stepped into a ready-made situation.
Yeah.
And so I'm not convinced that Lincoln's great, but it looks like he's pretty good. He's going to get to build out at Southern Cal and really going to prove whether or not he can get it done. I mean, but Bob Stoops had that thing. Look, man, the steak was already cooked. The wine was already open. The appetizers had already hit the table. And I just think that's a different deal than some of the stuff that we've witnessed here in this state and some other programs. So are you totally sold that Garrett Riley is like a phenomenal OC, Tom?
Yes, but I'm more so sold on the fact that this scheme in college works.
Okay.
It's quarterback friendly. It's plug and play. And he's good at utilizing it. He really is. Now, I will say this. The reason why I think he's legit is I actually had, during the COVID year when I was calling games out of a broom closet here in Charlotte, and we were all, none of us were on the road, and it was difficult circumstances. I had like 5 SMU games. And he was the offensive coordinator of those teams with Shane Buechele that were really good. And nobody knew who he was, right? Because it was a COVID year. It was SMU. They're playing some games on ESPN2 at 3:30, opposite of the SEC game. Nobody was really watching him. But Sonny Dykes is just kind of slowly stacking wins on wins on wins. And the offensive coordinator of those teams was Garrett Riley. And so he comes over to TCU, and all of a sudden they have this magical year. He starts getting noticed, right? But I think it started a few years back, to be honest with you.
Okay.
I just think he's really sharp, but more so than anything else, I think that scheme in college, if you have good players, if you got a quarterback, man, it is really quarterback friendly and college friendly too.
All right, give me the difference or similarities between a Garrett Riley scheme that a lot of other guys are running and a Kevin Barbay who's been at App State in Central or Western Michigan that's now at Mississippi State. What's the difference or similarity?
Kevin Barbay's scheme will be much more similar to Bobby Petrino's in terms of Tight ends, motion shifts. There's gonna be a significant emphasis on running the football with a dynamic passing game, and Garrett Riley's going to be a little bit more wide open, fast paced, spread the ball horizontally as much as they spread it vertically, because that's really what that scheme does. They throw they have the backfield action, they throw the backfield wide receiver screen. They have the backfield action, they throw the front side bubble screen. Next thing you know, everybody's widening out of the box, and now here comes guard tackle counter, and here comes inside zone, and it really threatens you. If you want to get a sense of what I mean there, if you watch TCU or you watch USC right now, and what will end up being Clemson next year, watch how wide the splits of the wide receivers are of the two outside receivers. They'll have guys lining up like halfway between the bottom of the numbers and the sideline. And so they spread you so thin, and you're worried about, all right, getting caught in space out there, but do you have enough bodies inside to defend the run? That's what that offense does to you.
Okay, and between the Garrett Riley and Bobby Petrino offense, where does Hugh Freeze fit in? His approach.
Gus Malzahn. Honestly, I think it's he and Gus Malzahn are a lot more similar to each other. I would probably say that it's somewhere in the middle between Petrino and Garrett Riley is where I would place a guy like Hugh Freeze or Gus Malzahn.
Got it. I can't wait to see what happens at Auburn at the quarterback position in year one, because Hugh's been so, damn good to get that position up and running, whether it was Arkansas State, Ole Miss, or Liberty.
Well, yeah, and I'll say this, and I've said this about Gus Malzahn's offense, and I think it's true for Hugh Freeze. The offense is infinitely better when the quarterback is a significant component of the run game.
Mm-hmm.
That just changes. It just changes things. It does, and you can see it. You can watch that offense, and you can look at it. That's what's going to be interesting to see what type of wizardry he can work with Robbie Ashford. If he can get that guy, who's a tremendous athlete, to somehow be competent in the passing game, they're going to be a lot better on offense than people think they're going to.
I think he's a better player than people give him credit for. He just got caught in a bad spot, and I agree that Freeze can get it out of him. I mean, he got everything he could out of Bo Wallace, and Bo at the college level, Bo was a hell of a quarterback. And I know Chad Kelly was more talented, but Bo could tuck it, and he could rip off a 15-yard run too on you. And so we'll see what Robbie Ashford does. All right, dude. I threw you a couple of curveballs, and of course you hit it out of the park. Have a great week. We'll talk soon.
All right, buddy. See you.
Tom Luginbill, National College Football Analyst with ESPN on the Farm Bureau Insurance guest line. We want you to go to Edwin Watts Golf Shop on County Line Road. Take your golf game to another level at Edwin Watts Golf Shop on County Line Road. It's right across from the Hilton Jackson. Edwin Watts Golf Shop before you go to Dancing Rabbit Golf Club. And they've got the best selection of golf balls, golf clubs, golf bags, and everything else in the golf world at Edwin Watts Golf Shop on County Line Road. Brad Henderson, Ole Miss Baseball, coming up at 9:30 today. Brad Henderson, Ole Miss Baseball at 9:30.